White girl moves to Japan and makes a video about it. Shocking. Hi YouTube. I'm uncomfortable. Also, my name is May. I just moved to Tokyo in 2020 and that has been a shit show that I want to tell you about. So let's start with how I got here so that the rest of this story makes sense. In maybe the middle of 2019, I was seriously considering going back to school to achieve some career goals of mine. I had been working at a corporate job in my career field for many years at that point, but I knew that there were some goals I was never going to achieve unless I went back to school. So at the end of 2019, I decided that now was the time to do that, and I decided to do that in Tokyo. So yeah, end of 2019, great time to start making goals for the new year, right? So by that point, I had paid tuition. I think I booked my flight, if not like looking at booking flights. I was looking at apartments, like the whole deal. And then 2020 happened to all of us. And very, very quickly, towards maybe the very beginning of February or the end of January, don't really remember, it became super clear that this was not gonna happen. I felt like these goals that I was finally setting up for my career were just like slipping through my fingers, and there was literally nothing that I could do about it. So I started working from home, and I was really thankful to have a job at the time. And then I started thinking, was this the right move for my career really? Was this the right move for myself personally? Given all of that time to reflect, as the months went on, it became clearer and clearer to me that this was still the thing that I wanted to do when it was safe to do it. But at that point, it wasn't even about was it safe to do it. Japan had fully locked down their borders, so you couldn't get in even if you wanted to. So that started to change in about October. Japan started opening its borders back up to people who had visas. Like as tourists, you still can't come. You have to have like a purpose to come here. But at the end of October, I took a trip to my local embassy. It was still 6 hours away, and I had to drive because that was like the only safe thing to do. And I went there to see basically like, is this still something that I can do? Because at that point, I had thought like, okay, 2020 is a wash. This is something that I will revisit in the new year, and we'll see where we're at. But then I took that trip to the embassy, and I was cleared for entry. Cleared. A million restrictions that I would have to go through in order to get here at this time. So once I got that news that it was possible to actually move, there was a million things that needed to happen very, very quickly. Japan is a huge fan of paperwork, so not only did I have my normal immigration paperwork, I brought my dog, so I had a million things to do for him, which that's a separate video in and of itself. But now there was a whole nother layer of COVID travel restrictions and COVID paperwork to get done. And from the time that I had that meeting with my embassy to when I left was about a month. So everything had to get done very, very quickly. So the biggest thing that changed in that time was that I had to provide a negative COVID test 72 hours before I got on my flight, which totally makes sense. But unfortunately for me, where I was in America, that was extremely hard to get done. In my state, my whole state, they were not doing rapid COVID testing. They were only doing it in like an emergency medical basis, which I did not qualify for. So the turnaround time where I was like 3 to 7 days. Like I got a COVID test as soon as I got back from the embassy just to kind of test what the timing would be. 6 days I got my results back in. 6 days, and I needed them in 72 hours. So I started doing a mad amount of research and found a lab that would do it, but it was 3 hours away and a total state over. And then that lab could do the test, but then they couldn't fill out the paperwork that Japan needed. So I needed to go to that lab, get a test, go back to my normal doctor and get him to fill out the paperwork. Keep in mind, this is all 3 days before I leave, which my dog had paperwork that needed done within a 7-day span before I left. I'm worried about this 3-day span. I'm also supposed to be packing at the same time. It was just a lot it was a stressful week. Let's just say it was a very stressful week. So I got the negative COVID test. There was really no question that it was going to be negative. I truly haven't left the house since like March. But then that just led into the next set of things, which was travel. Traveling with a dog is something. The trouble started immediately as I got to the airport. I got to the Delta check-in counter and the lady was like, you can't fly. You didn't get the right type of COVID test. Japan isn't gonna let you in. And I had to convince her that she was wrong. I got on the flight. It was totally fine. And then once you get off the flight, there's a whole new level of restrictions that you have to go through before you're even allowed to immigration to actually enter Japan. So I kept saying like I wasn't going to be excited about moving until I was literally like on the road on the way to my apartment, because there was just so much that could go wrong. So when you get off the flight, you have to go through COVID testing all over again. They check all of your paperwork, make sure you've gotten that negative COVID test before you flew, checked a bunch of stuff, and then eventually you're led to a COVID test, which was, okay, so this is gonna be a little bit gross, but I'm gonna tell you what happened. It is a saliva COVID test, and they put you in these little numbered booths in this little funnel, in this little vial, and you just have to spit into this little vial, and you have to give them so much spit to do this test. And like, you can hear people spitting around you, and like, I like started gagging. It was just disgusting. I eventually produced enough spit for them to do the test, and then the next step, they took you to a different area and you just waited for your test results. And this whole process in the airport can take, Japan says it takes between 1 and 3 hours. For me, just the waiting for the COVID test took an hour, and I was out of the airport after maybe probably 3.5 hours. The whole thing was like a very long process, but that included the COVID testing, all of the checking, immigration, stuff for my dog, customs, the whole deal. So all of that more or less brings us to now. After I left the airport, I had to have a privately hired taxi take me to my apartment, because you're not allowed to take public transit, because for 14 days after you land, even though you had a negative COVID test before you flew and you tested negative at the airport, you have to self-quarantine for 14 days. It's just a safety measure to make sure nothing happened on the airplane, nothing happened in the airport. Just in case you were to develop symptoms, you have to be inside lockdown for 14 days. So that's where I am now. So yeah, I have nothing better to do right now than make YouTube videos and study and watch Netflix. I'm only on my second day of quarantine, and making videos has always been something that I wanted to do, and right now feels so weird and different that it's like, why not? And I know the internet isn't always kind to foreigners who move to Japan, especially women who move to Japan, which I think is a really interesting conversation that I'm not ready to have right now. And I don't want my channel to be like the travel guide to Tokyo. Like, I'm brand new, I'm a baby here, I don't know anything. I don't especially know enough to like tell you anything about Tokyo, but it was like, I've always wanted to do this. This is a super weird time. The last year has been so weird, and like 2021, why not literally do anything that you want that makes you happy? I don't want to paint Japan as this like magical anime wonderland that is devoid of problems that we see on the internet. It is a normal place with normal problems, and I am a normal person doing something very normal. It just happens to be in Tokyo. And I do love Japan, and I am very excited and very thankful to be working on my career goals while I'm here. But if I were to show you anything, I would just want to show you my normal life. And there's a lot of things that I'm really excited to do here, especially seeing everything through like my rose-colored glasses as they are now, because everything is so new, everything is so fresh. When you move, everything is exciting. And I don't want to show it as the place that solves all of your problems, because that's just like disingenuous for views. If I show you something, I want it to be real. Yeah, so I just have a bunch of videos I want to make of things that just like I would love to watch. Like, I want to give a tour of my Airbnb because I think it's super cute, or I want to go through all the stuff I had to do with my dog to get him here, because that was a whole process. You good? So if there's anything that you want to see, I would love to hear from anybody who actually did watch this video, so let me know down below. I am on my second day of quarantine. I'm stuck in here for 14 days, so I'm sure I will check back in at some point. Thank you so much for watching.